My name is Stacey Mascall. I am from the Twin Island nation of Antigua and Barbuda, two small islands in the Caribbean Sea. I am an education officer responsible for knowledge management. I have been an educator for over 16 years. It is a field that I'm very passionate about since I believe education is the driver of change in any society. Within my country, we are now advocates for the use of OERs. This is demonstrated within our newly revised ICT and education policy document, in which the government has stated the country's commitment through the education sector to provide access to comprehensive, freely available sets of openly licensed resources in multiple media for use in schools. The government has also made available resources towards the installation of the necessary infrastructure and hardware in efforts of creating ICT-enabled environments, thus ensuring that there is access to OERs. Two major initiatives that stand out in the equipping of teachers with laptops and internet access at reduced cost. The next initiative is that of equipping our grades 8, 9, 10, and 11 students with tablets so that they can better utilize the resources that are available online. Today, my presentation will be a discussion highlighting some of the factors that need to be considered or addressed in order to gain that true experience of the potential benefits of OERs in the classroom or the learning environment. It is entitled, What Will It Take to Have an OER Experience in the Classroom? For the purposes of this presentation, the term OERs will be defined as educational material that are openly licensed, which can be shared, used, and reused. Before one could use any tool, one must first determine the potential benefits that can be derived from the use of it. Hence, as starters, I wish to briefly highlight some of the potential benefits of using OERs in the teaching and learning environment. The first benefit that I will wish to highlight is the economic benefit. From a small developing country, the education sector is one of the many other sectors that competes with the scarce financial resources. Hence, with this as a reality, and with the hope to effect change so as to better enhance the teaching and learning environment as educators, it is required of us to explore and embrace options that can significantly reduce the cost of education. Failure to do this will result in a transformation that is slow or somewhat impossible without adequate financing. Open education resources present such an option. Currently, a significant portion of the budget for education is allocated for the purchase of textbooks. With the reduction of this cost and the reallocation of these resources to other areas such as professional development, content production, just to name a few, the change that is being sought can be realized sooner. Although cost is a major contributing factor for exploring the use of OERs, let me hasten to say that it is not the only reason. Using OERs, there are a number of potential benefits and institutional benefits. Pedagogical benefits. So we will look at the pedagogical benefits that are associated with OERs. And there are a number of them, but we will only look at a few. The first one I wish to highlight is that of access to a wide range of educational material. Now, it is obvious that this is one of the main features of OERs. the vast number or the wealth of information that is there, that is stored online in a digitized format that is readily accessible. And with the introduction of technology being the main channel whereby we can access these resources, and being that it's available in most of our environments or learning environments, we can better capitalize on the resources that are there. The second point I wish to highlight as a benefit is packaging of content that allows for more time for teachers to do other activities with the learners. In the past, teachers were seen as the main source of content, but this has since changed. And as a result, teachers are freer now in the classroom because content is readily available through OERs. And as such, the teachers could basically utilize this time, this free time, as we may say, to better engage, to better be engaged with assessment activities so that they can better guide the process of learning. And so these are some of the potential benefits in the pedagogical arena that OERs offer. Now, the third point under this slide I wish to highlight is the ease of sharing. That was a problem in the past and no longer it is. As content is produced, it can be shared readily. Available for most part digitally, presents the opportunity for resources to be shared more readily. This allows for information shared to be more current, more up to date, and presents teachers with an avenue for them to share content with their colleagues, encouraging the formation of professional learning communities or communities of best practices. And so here we see we encourage camaraderie and collaboration and cooperation within the pedagogical environment. The next point is ease of continuously improving material. This is key, especially when we speak about open resources, because one of the things that stigmatize this process is that of how can we guarantee that what we have is quality. And as such, being able to view open education resources, it gives teachers an opportunity to look on what is there and have that ability to contribute, further improving that material that is out there or that is being produced by them. Having their colleagues to look over and to remix and rebrand as such based on the license that are attached to these materials. The next point is that of material available in a variety of formats. Now, be it in text, audio, video, or a combination, content is available. This gives learners the opportunity to choose which format best suits their learning style. It also gives teachers a chance to change things up a bit in the classroom, keeping students always wondering what's next. So basically, the material that is available in all sort of formats give us that flexibility, which is what we'll need in that learning environment, whereby we can better enhance our craft so that the children can remain further engaged or better engaged in the learning process. The next area of benefits that I want to explore is that of institutional benefits. What benefits can institutions gain by embracing OERs? The first point I have is opportunity to demonstrate commitment to creating a more effective learning environment for students. Indeed, this is key. One of the things that should be obvious in any educational institution is the commitment to create an environment that is ideal and conducive for learning. It must be demonstrated that learners' best interest is at heart. Hence, with the adoption of OERs, as learning resources, it is an indication that an institution is committed to continuous improvement and enhancement to the learning environment. The second point states opportunity to develop better programs and courses and materials. This is particularly advantageous to institutions which promotes higher education to attract students based on the programs and courses that they offer. The commitment to development of content can showcase the institution's the commitment to the development of content can showcase that the institution is serious about catering to the different needs of its learners and to provide the quality of materials that is needed for learning. The next point, opportunity to gain recognition globally. Again, this is an opportunity for higher education institutions which are highly dependent on their image. This image is created based on the content, programs that the institution promotes. And as such, with that capability that is offered through OERs, it's further demonstration that once once the institution are prepared, they are prepared to embrace OERs, that they are better able to offer that vast amount of educational material that can better help students. Another point on the or potential benefits in institutional for the institution is that of policy review. Very often, policies are created in institutions and they're not current, they're not up to date. And as such, it does not reflect the environment that we now operate in. I dare say that some institutions feel safe in terms of holding on to the customs and practices that they would have originally been created with, or that they would have put forth as their image, but no longer is that necessarily acceptable in our society because there is change, obvious change. And so policies must change in order for institution to remain or seen as current. So the introduction of OERs within an institution calls for change. Hence, the review of existing policies, especially on issues of intellectual property rights, is inevitable. The revised policy must address the issue of quality assurance from the standpoint of ensuring quality of the materials that are developed or materials that are endorsed by the institution. It must also speak to the new role of staff as it relates to the delivery of instructions and the producing of content. So these are some of the institutional benefits that can be derived through the introduction of OERs. Now, what it takes. What does it take for us to have that true sense of OERs within our classrooms or learning environments? The first thing is for us to really understand the development cycle. As users of OERs, especially in this little state of ours, Antigua and Barbuda, it's new to us, we first need to have that awareness as to how this cycle works. As persons who are preparing, as educators who are preparing to use OERs as a resource or a means to improving our learning environment, how do we go about searching for things that are applicable or aligned to our current curriculum? And so we need to be aware of the different search engines, the different repositories that are available. We need to know exactly what our aim and objectives are within our curriculum so that we can better search for things that are specifically related to our goals and objectives within our curriculum. And so even the searching and finding of the repositories where these OERs are saved, as well as further searching for the required OERs that we hope to utilize within our learning environment. Having found those, we then need to see how best we can probably add, remix, rebrand, whatever flexibility that is allowed for us to do with the material, having found it, and then use it to better enhance our learning environment. But coupled with that is that we have the ability then, having discovered, having researched, to share this content with our colleagues within our education system, or even on a broader scale, having done some readjustments where necessary to that particular resource. So basically, understanding the development cycle is very important. Even from a producer's point of view, producer of content, we also need to understand that cycle, because one of the key word is quality assurance. Hence, developing content, we have to be very cognizant of the fact that chances are we might be using third-party content. And as such, we have to be familiar with what it takes for us to be able to incorporate these type of content within our own material. Or we must be very cognizant of the fact that even though we would have produced content, that we need to have these content edited, we need to have these content go through the rigorous process so that we can be guaranteed that once this content is shared, we can obtain quality. The next area I want to look at is understanding in the types of licensing that is available, which is very important. The common Creative Commons license, they are pretty straightforward, but as producers of content or as users of content, we have to be clear as to the limitations that are allotted out to us as users, or what we would want to have on our material as producers. And this is very important. So one of the things that we need to have down pat is that of the licensing that are available to these content that we are either using or we are producing. Now, the other area that is very much, that I'm very much passionate about is that of policies. Early on, I would have touched that aspect of policies. Now, I have here provision in policy of clarity on intellectual property rights and copyright. This is very important. In fact, one of our roles and responsibilities here in Antigua and Barbuda at this point, having adopted or revised our new ICT policy in education, is to really revisit the content and material that we have available, which would have been produced locally, or the ones that we are currently using. So looking clearly at the intellectual property rights and copyright of the content that we currently use is very important, and how we plan to deal with it. The human resource policy guidelines, as I said, the 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 the, the whole teacher teacher within the learning environment, the roles and responsibilities have significantly changed. How do we deal with this change? How can we then change that role into something positive? There's more time now that are available for teachers to sit and do one-on-one work with students, to even sit and plan more effectively. So we have to be clear as to how we're going to channel the time that is now freed up into in some format that can be more productive within the learning environment. Do we then ask teachers now to concentrate on actually producing content? Is there a way that, based on the resources, the financial resources that we are now able to save, Can that now be used as some way, some type of motivation for teachers to become producers of content? So these are some of the issues that we need to consider now that there is change. We need to be clear. We need to have a clear ICT policy. And that is why the government made a bold step in embracing that review of its whole ICT policy in education. Because, as I said, the environment, the territory is different. And as such, in order for us to remain current, we must be able to have policies that would guide us through this change period. So ICT policy guidelines is very much important so that we can be clear as to the vision and our mission, and to be clear as to the priority areas that we are hoping to pursue during this period of change. Material development and quality assurance policy guidelines. As mentioned earlier, one of the key terms in open education resources is quality assurance. And as such, it demands of us to make sure that whatever we do within this change, that the development of material or even the accessing of material is of a particular quality that will be beneficial to our learners. The next area I wish to touch on is capacity building. The skills required for institutions to harness OERs effectively. Now I will just speak through the points here. It says expertise in advocacy and promotion of OERs. In order for us to truly embrace OERs, we have to be true advocates for OERs. Legal expertise relating to content licensing. This is important for us to be able to know what is required, what are the license agreements, what it symbolizes, so that we would not be held in contempt for using things outside of what we are able to use, or rebrand and remix as such as we may want to. It is controlled by licensing. Program, course, and material design and development expertise. These are some of the areas we need to begin training of our human resources. How do we go about developing material, designing material, quality material that is? And of course, a technical expertise is needed because, of course, when we're finished designing, how do we get it across? How do we digitize? How do we get it out there in the many repositories or even the forums out there so that they can be showcased and be seen and shared and used by others in the learning community? Communication and research skills, which is very important. Expertise in developing and explaining business models that justify the use of open licensing. After all, we don't operate in a vacuum. And so even our partners out there in education, there must be something that we're able to say to them that this is the way to go as it relates to OERs. And so capacity building is very important as it relates to creating that change within the learning environment with the use of OERs. Now I have here a slide that says accessories, and that was deliberate because these listed here, for example, infrastructure, search approach or strategy, access to repository to share and get open material. Once we would have had the shared vision, once we would have had persons who are advocates of OERs, then these other elements, which I call accessories, will automatically go into place because we will need to get infrastructure in place for it to happen. We will need to derive a way in order to search appropriately and effectively for the material. And of course, we would access and we would share open resources that are created or that are already there. So that is why I refer to these as accessories, because the main thing I think from the previous slide, the policy creation, the capacity building, and understanding the licensing agreement, and as well as understanding the how the process is done. But as in any situation, there are always potential challenges, and I label these challenges as roadblocks, because failure to understand the potential of benefits for both learners and institutions is a major roadblock as it relates to the introduction of OERs. Because if institutions, if educators, if decision makers, if policy makers, if they do not understand the importance of OERs, it will not happen. Also, short-sightedness, lack of buy-in of educators. This could also stymie the process of embracing OERs in the classroom. I mentioned earlier about customs and culture, some persons not willing to change the image, but this is inevitable. This is inevitable because of the fact that change is here. And so, even if it's a roadblock as it is now, definitely educators will have no other choice but to buy into this process. And finally, reluctance to release sole rights on material developed. Some persons are of the view that I develop the content, it should be solely mine and mine only, and at a cost. But during my research, one of the authors suggests that it's either they come on the train or they will drown with the realities of things as it is now. Because it's obvious that many of the bookshops in universities are closing because of the fact that many students are gravitating towards the OERs. So the way to go is to produce your content, share it, put on the necessary license agreement on it so that others can benefit. And in the end, it will be a win-win situation. And so I am pleased today to have participated in this particular presentation, in this particular activity, because I am an advocate of OERs, because it truly has a lot of benefits that can be derived within the classroom setting. Our main goal is to ensure that our learners achieve success no matter what the situation. And one of the ways to do this is to access the quality materials that are currently available in vast numbers within the repositories out there. Thank you.